how Darth Vader single-handedly massacred 1,000 rebel soldiers.
This is not a drill.
The comms blared through the rebel base as Alliance soldiers hurried through the corridors with blaster rifles in hand.
Your target?
The comms continued, pausing only slightly.
Is Darth Vader. May the Force be with you.
Y-wing bombers rose into the air, and below them crowded troop carriers rocketed away from the base over the planet's red rocky terrain, flanked by hover tanks. Vader's ship had gone down on Vrogas Vas, taken out when Luke Skywalker flew his X-wing straight into the Sith Lord's TIE fighter. Both men had crashed, and for all of Luke's heroism, he was not the priority. Now the Empire's greatest commander was alone on the planet with them, cut off from any support. There was no way they would miss this opportunity to take him down once and for all. What did the rebels do to finally stop Vader? And how did the Sith Lord react? Far away at the rebel fleet, a similar scene played out as pilots and infantry alike scrambled to get to the flight decks. Slower than most to respond, Han was still in shock at the news. Did you say Vader? As in the guy who's almost killed us every time we've ever come near him? And you're going after him on purpose? Walking beside him, Leia scowled. Now was no time to waste on Han's usual skepticism. They needed to act. This was their chance to stop Vader. And it was her chance to finally get him for what he's done to Alderaan. He tortured her, and then forced her to watch as her entire world, everyone and everything she had ever known, was obliterated by the Death Star. But if this mission was going to succeed, she could not make it personal. Leia explained to Han the strategic urgency of the moment, how they could take away one of the Empire's greatest assets, just as Han had helped them do in the Battle of Yavin. In addition to the company stationed on Vrogas Vas, General Dodonna was sending an entire battalion of reinforcements and needed her to supervise the operation. Sudden comprehension flashed across Han's face. Vrogas Vas? That's where Luke went. Galactic politics were never his main concern, but he was not about to abandon his friend. Vader is the priority, Leia reminded him as they reached the flight deck. Han shouted orders to Chewbacca, and a moment later, they were all in the Falcon's cockpit as the ship lifted off, joining the other Alliance vessels. Back on Vrogas Vas, 3 of the Y-wings from the Rebel base were nearing the crash site. Gases rose from the planet's barren rock, hindering visibility, but there was no mistaking the smoke rising from the still burning wreckage of the TIE fighter below. This is Grey Squadron. We're over the crash site now. The Rebels' pilot's voice buzzed over the comms. No sign of... Wait! It's him! It's Vader! The Sith Lord looked almost small as he stepped away from the burning debris where his ship had formed a crater in the hard earth. Don't waste any time, Grey Squadron, came the order from the Rebel command. The Y-wings already had their targets locked. Commencing bombing on my... But already, Darth Vader was responding, the Force flowing through him and into the shattered stone beneath the wreck. Boulders rose into the air around him. One of the Y-wing pilots had just enough time to voice their surprise before all 3 ships were bombarded by rocks hurtling through the air. The ships erupted in flames, burning in the sky overhead as Vader turned his back on the scene. He may have crashed, but he knew how the rebels operated and would meet his foes head-on. As he advanced over the terrain, he felt something else, something ancient and powerful, the traces of an old Jedi temple on the planet. This led to another thought as he considered the rebel pilot who had rammed him. His son, who the Emperor had hidden from him, and who must have come here to learn about the Force from the temple.
No wonder the boy...
He began, but his musings were interrupted by a shout. Darth Vader! A rebel commander barked. Through the planet's gaseous fog, Vader could see the men closing in, blaster rifles trained on him. Lay down your weapons, you're surrounded, the officer ordered. The Sith Lord could see the rebels now, hundreds of them, converging from all sides to encircle him. And he could sense hundreds more, arriving in troop transports and on foot in the armored hulls of tanks. A whole battalion, all armed and all focused entirely on him. And they were afraid. The wind picked up, buffeting Vader's tattered cape and briefly clearing enough of the gaseous mist for him to see the hundreds of soldiers on all sides. The red lightsaber buzzed to life in his hand.
All I am surrounded by is fear and dead men.
He felt the way they stiffened at his words. Still, no one moved. Enough! The rebel commander shouted. Surrender now!
Very well,
Vader responded. There was an audible sigh of relief from among the surrounding troops, until Vader explained that he would accept their surrender if they lowered their arms. Keeping his lightsaber held still at his side, He used his other hand to motionlessly tap into the Force, something none in their ranks would be able to detect. The enemy commander gave the order to shoot, then stopped mid-sentence as the grenades strapped to his uniform and the grenades carried by all the soldiers around him started beeping to life. Having been telekinetically activated, the explosions tore through the rebel army and cracked the rocky earth, sending up clouds of smoke and debris. Further away, troop transports detonated along with the soldiers inside them. In a single moment, all except for the rearmost infantry were wiped out. Inside one of the tanks, a rebel gunner had enough sense to take a shot even as smoke obscured his view. The laser cannon fired. Vader's lightsaber flashed, parrying the blast and knocking it back into the tank. Men screamed in terror at the tank's destruction. Now the entire battlefield was choked with smoke. Unable to see anything, the remaining infantry panicked, firing wildly into the haze. It made them easy targets for the Sith Lord. Unable to see, the rebels listened to the screams of their dying allies and the buzz of the lightsaber until Vader had cut down the last of them. Back at the rebel base, Leia asked for a status report. The officer in charge told her things had gone about as well as could be expected. Vader had single-handedly taken out the entire battalion.